one of the reasons I don't think it's good for Milei to associate as much with the international right is that he has actually been more successful and popular internationally and domestically. Like everyone said, okay, Milei is a typical right-wing populist party, so he will be popular with young men and rural people and maybe the working class. But actually, we saw that he performed very well with basically all social classes, all ages, all both men and women. Um, Maybe if he goes farther with this more right wing turn, we'll start to see more polarization. That he will increase his vote with young men and lose young women, which didn't happen last time. Uh, we got to see about that.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 278. I'm talking to Eloy Vera Beltrán. He's in Argentina, and we're going to talk about Argentina, Javier Milei. We're going to talk about his first year, but the most recent events are this unfortunate promotion of the meme coin, and we don't really know what to say about this right now. It's not looking that great, though. But yes, so how are you, Eloy?
I'm fine. I'm as shocked as anyone about the recent events with the
Yeah,
crypto scam and everything.
yeah. I forgot. Where are you?
In Bahia Blanca, Argentina.
Where? Okay. Oh yeah, Blanca. I think you meant, yeah. Yeah, I looked at
Yeah,
this.
it's like it's not one of the major cities, so
Yeah,
somewhere in our
I realize I've done all these shows, and I realize there's lots of people in Buenos Aires, but I probably it's great to get people who aren't in Buenos Aires, but obviously it's harder to find English speakers when you get away from Buenos Aires. But but I do want to know what's going on all over
yeah,
the country,
and
because
also it's got to do with the disproportion. Like 40% of the population lives in Buenos Aires, yeah,
yeah,
or the greater Buenos Aires area. Like statistically, you will likely find, and as you say, if you look for a more educated, influential sort of people, you will tend to find more around Buenos Aires.
yeah, and I figure I'm much more likely to find more English speakers there too, just for the same reasons. But yeah, but that's why I'm always
Yeah,
glad when I get somebody who's not in Buenos Aires. So one thing I also wanted to comment about, the World Economic Forum speech too. I did go over a full review of that, but I'd like to talk about that too, because that's, but I guess that's one thing about the meme coin, is it's taken all the attention away from the World Economic Forum speech. So, but first of all, Loy, let's talk about some of the good things. We're now 14 months, and things have certainly gotten better in Argentina. I mean, inflation is down. The government employees are going. What do you want to say about that first?
yeah, definitely that's true. I mean, sadly, there are a few events this year that have been unprovoked errors from the administration, because it was all sorts of battles that the government picked for itself rather than being forced. Like when you are the government, some things happen to you, like I don't know, the pandemic or an invasion if you're Ukraine or whatever. Um, but all of this stuff, like the speech at Davos, the meme coin stuff, were all things initiated by the government, which they later regretted. But that shouldn't like make us forget that, yeah, actually, we already have the lowest inflation we've had in maybe 10 years. It's like 2% monthly, and according to predictions, it's going to be 20% around the entire year, which coming down from 200+% inflation over 2023. That's a lot of progress. And actually, we already have the so-called V-shaped recuperation, because the main indicators of economic activity like consumption, the employment market, etc., went down during the first uh, half, 2/3 of the year 2024, and then came back. And we're now seeing that actually some of the indicators are better. There's still some progress to be made. Of course, inflation is always um, it still has to come down to like normal country levels, and the lower it goes, it's harder because there's always a core residual sort of inflation that has to be dealt with. And also, we still have the main restriction that is the parity with the US dollar. Is Milei going to allow for a free competition of currency? Is he going to try to sanitize the peso? Is he too enamored, as some economists believe, with the current sort of controlled exchange rate scheme? Uh, and what are the consequences for the country? Is Argentina maybe too expensive right now in US dollars, which means uh, it's not good for tourism? It's maybe good for uh, those industries that have to import their stuff. But yeah, that sort of things need to be sorted out still. But overall, it's pretty good, and that's why Milei's numbers are still basically the same that when he came back, still at around 55% of approval.
Yeah, I'm looking at a few. I just brought up a few charts here. In the last year, the Argentine peso has went from 49 to 52 against the Mexican pesos. So now you can get more Mexican pesos, and also the euro. It's went from
Mhm.
it would take you nine. Yeah, so that was certainly some progress. It seems like things, especially in the last 6 months, have stabilized. I mean, and there's some economic growth, and we have things like the more housing situation's gotten better because of less regulations. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of progress that's been made here. Yeah, but then there was this whole thing with the meme coin. Based on what I've heard, this is not the first time Milei has gotten behind a crypto like this that ended up being rug pulled. I mean, that's what bothers me here is it's the second time this has happened. I had Adam Dubove back on 84 talk about one of these situations where he was just
Mhm.
using his and I don't know if Milei profited off this or not, but it just asks me why would you uh, why would you get behind this? Because it seems like there's very little upside, but there's a lot of big downsides, and we certainly seen what the downsides are. You know, what do you think?
Yeah. Um, I mean, uh, it's still on the sort of damage control period over here. Milei and all of his team are still sorting out what the official narrative around this is. But from what we thoroughly saw the entire media ecosystem here in Argentina has sorted out is basically someone close to Milei. We still don't know if Milei himself. I personally believe not. Um, knew this was a scam, and uh, someone on his close circle of advisors introduced him to these people, Keep Protocol, they are called. It's the sort of enterprise that runs this LIBRA meme coin. Um, it has been on the workings for a couple of months. They had some meetings with the staff at the central bank, and then with the presidential staff. And I believe 1 month or two ago, they had a meeting with Milei, and everyone was saying, "Okay, who is this guy? This Hayden Davis, I believe is his name.
Yes, Hayden Davis. Yeah,
Where he comes from, and why is the president of Argentina meeting with him? Because he's not one of the main crypto guys around the block. Like he's not Vitalik Buterin or even some of the very healthy crypto community we have over here in Argentina. Um, who is this guy, and what are his credentials, and why does he have access to the president? Um, so right around now, the official narrative, what Milei said yesterday in an interview that got leaked. I mean, there was an interview that was published, and then the whole uncut version of the interview got leaked from the news channel that made it. What he basically said is that he's no expert in crypto stuff. He is not, despite being an economist, is not a thing he's particularly interested in. He just like generally optimistic about technological projects. So whenever someone uh, approaches him with a project like this, he will um, promote it. Uh, he's sort of wishy-washy with the language, whether he actually did promote it or not, because of course that will play out in court if anyone sues, saying I want my money back. You don't want to say you did promote a scam. But then the question is who in his private circle approach him with these people, and why isn't he demanding their heads on a plate, basically? So people are speculating, and it's someone pretty close to the president, like one of his main economic advisors, or his sister, who is his secretary. So that Milei cannot be seen to up push them away from the government, because it would reflect badly on him personally. Um, so that's the main narrative right now.
Yeah, this is and you know, this is one of the problems with when you get to be rich, famous, or powerful. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to get a photo shot with you. Everybody wants to get to know you, and you get to a point where you have to hire gatekeepers to manage
Yes.
your schedule to see who can get access and who can't get access and who you talk to. I mean, it becomes a situation, unfortunately, where you really don't know who your friends are.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that Milei said in the interview. Like, one of his main assets uh, for his electoral success is that his sort of authenticity, the fact that you more or less can feel he's the same person right now that he was before becoming a politician, like a few years ago. The fact is that he is a politician now, and he's actually the most powerful person in the country, and he is very famous to a level that other Argentina presidents haven't been abroad. Um, so yeah, he needs to start, in his words, erecting walls and filters around him, so that people, he needs to stop tweeting all the time. He needs to start replicating anyone who just mentions his name. And I personally have benefited from this. Like, I once published an article in Reason, and just because I mentioned Millet, he retweeted it. So it was for my personal benefit. Of course, most people are just good faith people who are talking about Millet or approaching him with projects, but time is scarce, and you don't know who you can trust. So he probably will start to be less communicative or economizing his words over the next months, which of course is also a problem. Or we'll see how that plays out, because we have midterms this year, elections for the legislature. So he needs to come out to speaking on behalf of his party.
Yes. Yes, this is not good. This is not good for the midterms at all. That's what I'm really been thinking about. I
Mhm.
mean, Milei has 2 more years, but he really needs more allies in the midterms. Has anybody in within La Libertad Avanza said anything about this?
Well, I
The
don't know
party,
if
you know,
you.
Milei's party or coalition. Yeah.
Well, since you didn't mention this, I don't know if you're aware of that. Actually, there have been like a small series of purges over the last few months in La Libertad Avanza, because again, we really can't differentiate how much of this comes from Milei personally, or the people he's surrounded with and he trusts and more or less delegates in them the building of the party, because it's a new party. It didn't exist 2 years ago. Uh, there's starting to they want to build a very vertical top down sort of movement where Milei's leadership is unchallenged. Which, of course, he's the most popular leader and the most ideological of them. But that also means that they have started to remove some of the people who could have been sort of a threat or exercise some autonomy. It was maybe you have heard this motto, "The forces of heaven," because Milei used to quote a passage from the Book of Maccabees saying, "Victory in battle doesn't depend on the number of soldiers, but from the strength you get from the forces of heaven." Because at the start there were just four people in La Libertad Avanza: Milei, Villarruel, who became vice president, uh, Ramiro Marra, who became the candidate for mayor of Buenos Aires, and Diana Mondino, who became the foreign minister, and all three of them had been expelled from the party. So it's only Milei remaining.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main problems for here, that there are no strong personalities to carry the, at least for the time being. Maybe there will emerge some names are being proposed. But at the time, there are no strong personalities to carry the electoral wave this year, like Milei personally did. And he can't run again because he's already the president. You need faces to put on the ballot.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, we haven't really talked much about what's going on with Villarreal, but yeah, I've certainly talked about Mondino, and that was not a good sign at all when Mondino went out.
Mhm.
And you said the mayoral candidate for Buenos Aires, I can't remember his name.
Ramiro Marra.
Ra-
Ramiro Marra.
Ramiro Mata. Yeah, I've mentioned. I think I've talked about him before. Ramiro Mata. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, Ramiro Mata. Yeah, I looked. I think I probably followed him. I just need to remember. Yeah, is that Mara?
Uh, I will type it on the chat. 2 hours.
Oh yeah, Ramiro Mata. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he's actually like, even though he was expelled, he said that he's still like a libertarian, so he is
yeah,
still aligned with the government and will probably vote with them in most of the issues. He just
yeah,
doesn't have hold any institutional responsibility anymore.
yeah. And he was yeah. So yeah, Ramiro Mata, and he's not the mayor. He just ran for mayor. Yeah. How do you do
He
in the
ran for
mayor?
mayor, and he was. I think he came in third, like maybe with around 10% of the vote. Buenos Aires is is the politics is very localized,
Yeah.
and it's very polarized around uh, really just one just one party that is one uh, maybe it's, so that you understand the center right and the center left. So neither Milei nor his direct opposition, which is the left or far left, is
Yes.
popular. Uh, they always have floated around this sort of centrist coalition that ruled us at the time of Mauricio Macri, and those are the sort of two options
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah. When did the Ramiro Mata? When was he out?
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Oh, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it's the first I've heard of this. Yeah, it's certainly.
Very recent.
And so that's the thing. Yeah, it's. I don't know if it always goes this way in politics. Mondino's out and Ramiro Mata's out, and he's certainly big too. Yeah, he's got a lot of. I mean, these are all big people. It's 500,000 Twitter
Mhm.
followers. So none of these people are. In fact, it's safe to say the mayor of Buenos Aires is probably a
Yeah,
bigger deal than being governor of a lot of the provinces when you consider how many people are in Buenos Aires. But yeah, so
yeah, definitely. I mean, you have a lot more people under you and more reach.
one thing I wanted to stress to my audience out there is that most cryptocurrency projects do fail. Now that doesn't mean that they're scams. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just the same way, if you watch somebody lose a sporting event, you assume that they're trying to win, but maybe they are trying to lose, or maybe they don't care. But I think, but just just an example. I'm going to use the example of WOZX, cryptocurrency WOZX. Why am I using this example? Is because Steve Wozniak was involved with this, one of the co-founders of Apple, and this is a guy with billions of dollars.
Mhm.
He doesn't need to be part of a scam, but he wanted to get into the crypto game, and this is what happened. At one point, he was, almost at his high was, he had a high of $3.66, and that was in December of 2020. And then on October 17th last year, this went down to 0.0011 cents. That's a lot to lose. Now, I don't think, obviously, I don't know Woz personally. I don't know his, but this is probably just a coin that legitimately failed. Now it failed. It didn't fail fast,
Yeah.
but it definitely, if you'd put all your money into that and just sat on it, you would have, going from, we're not talking about 11 cents. We're talking about 11, 0.0011. I mean, it's you basically lost everything there. So, yeah. So if you had $366, you would have went to 11 cents. But so not every crypto is a scam, but when you consider how fast Libra crashed, it certainly has the appearance of being a scam, or as they call it, a rug pull, a pump and dump, pull the rug out from underneath people, or, pump the
Yeah.
coin, dump the coin. I don't know. They probably got some cool slang terms in Spanish for this too. What ones are they, by the way?
Yeah. And it was very coordinated.
Yeah.
I think the coin was created or it launched and 2 minutes afterwards, Milei started to promote it. And then one thing that you notice is it's one of the first times that a lot of libertarian leaning people started to openly say they disagree with what the government was doing, or at least that they didn't understand that someone need to take responsibility in the government team. Um, but there were like around 6 hours of radio silence before the government reacted, and Milei actually confirmed, "No, I wasn't hacked. This was a mistake," uh, and everything that came afterwards. But yeah, the question remaining is whether someone in the government profiteered from this. Someone definitely knew or should have known that this was uh, suspicious, at least.
Yeah.
And that person should not be able to present anyone to the person again. But then again, did they know and did they earn any money from this scam? That's the real question.
Yeah. And any of the other question I asked, does Milei run his Twitter, or is somebody else running it? And is it one person, or is it a committee of people running it?
He has said in interviews that he takes a few hours a day to personally retweet and answer some messages, and you can actually see sometimes he will tweet, "I am over here. Tell me things or speak with me." But I think he does have a few managers, and
Yeah.
actually, you can tell because of the way this particular tweet, where he promoted or from his account promoting the meme coin, it probably wasn't him because you can tell by the way he writes, certain words that he uses, certain phrases and stock phrases. It probably wasn't him on this particular text, but I don't know. Why didn't he delete the tweet for the 6 following hours? That's the main question.
Well, once you put out a tweet like that for even a minute, when you've got millions of followers, the damage is already done. It's
Yeah,
that's the thing about the internet. Once you put it out there, you can't take it back, which is why I don't do very many live shows. but but it's but that's I record them and go through them and see what happens. And sometimes I will upload and then pull them down immediately, and then make edits and repost them again. But it's so where yeah, that's who's running his Twitter, and who's his gatekeeper. I mean, but as I said earlier, the problem, Karina's always been with him. I mean, Karina was with him, and Karina will still be there if he loses everything. But who else will
Yeah.
be there if he loses everything? It's hard to say. I mean, yeah. Well, as I've said, this seemed like something though. If you're flipping a coin, heads you might profit 3%, but if you lose, you'll lose 90%, and at tails you'll lose 90%. So like, why would you take this gamble? There was very few upsides to this. I mean, what was this supposed to do? What were supposed to be the benefits? What would have been a reason to promote this? Was it going to encourage investment in Argentina or what?
Yeah, technically it was to um, or what Milei says, or what he said in the interview last night that he understood is that they were going to raise money, which then was going to be used to fund development projects in Argentina. I am something about like a sort of investment fund for development initiatives here in Argentina. That was supposed to be the thing that Milei understood he was promoting.
Yeah, so there could have been some upside for this, but and what else do we know about Hayden Davis? I mean, I have seen some videos from Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports, and he's talked about this, and apparently he got sent some of the tokens and then he immediately sent them back. It seems like he didn't really want to touch this. And I don't know that much about Dave Portnoy, but here's somebody who kind of said, yeah, this may not be something you want to get behind.
Mm.
Because, it is something you got to be careful of, just the same way. If I go out and endorse a health food product or go out and endorse, food, and he said, yes, this is really good, nutritious food. And you find out it's giving people cancer. It's like, no, I shouldn't have done that. But this,
Yeah, and
yeah,
there are some people who have been pointing fingers at. I don't know if you're aware of him, Damian Reidel. He's
yeah,
one of the chief economic advisors of Milei, and the founder of Cardano, and some other important people of the crypto space around
yes,
the world have been saying that he is the main gatekeeper for this particular sort of
yeah,
affairs, like having to do with investment, crypto no scam schemes,
yeah,
etc. And that he will ask um, kickbacks basically for a meeting with Milei, and that's why the Cardano people didn't have a meeting with, because they refused to pay a bribe to Radel. And other people have come since, so maybe that's what happened. Maybe this guy Radel is the one who knows, and he's the one who knew about the scam. But again, you can't really trust, because maybe it wasn't him; it was other people on Milei's team that they're trying to push the guilt to someone else. So we still don't have
yeah,
much information. And one of the things, I think the main affectation, like this affected mainly his image abroad, like his credibility with the markets and foreign leaders and the investment community around the world might be a little tarnished. But over here in Argentina, public opinion doesn't care as much. For starters, most of the people who were scammed were not Argentinians. We could have some problem in the courts in the United States, for example, if they start demanding their money back, saying that they
yeah,
was basically scammed by the president of a country. But most Argentinians don't invest in crypto. Those who do probably didn't invest in this particular scheme, and most people just don't know anything about this. His numbers are doing fine, and he will probably uh, still win the midterms this year. It's just a matter of how this affects the image he has been constructing of a sort of 5D chess player. He knows everything. He controls the narrative. No one in his movement will ever dare to defy the dictates of Milei's team. This was the first time that you could actually tell, oh no, actually he did commit a mistake, and if he said it, which I think it's all right that you admit when you have mistakes. Uh, but that really shows that you actually do need the people, your allies, who you said you didn't need, and there's much more amateurism and unseriousness in your government than they were willing to let out.
Yeah, yeah, that was yeah, Damian Radel. Yeah, it's a his economic advisor who found out about who introduced this. You think,
Yeah,
maybe maybe it's just because the people down there are more used to stuff like this happening, Eloy?
yeah, yeah. We've had a lot of corruption. Like
Yeah.
the very same day that he granted this interview that afterwards got leaked. Uh, our former president Alberto Fernandez was I don't know what's the word in English for this. He was processed in court for beating his wife. Uh,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Again, the former president, two presidents before that, Christina Kirchner, was involved in a lot of corruption schemes all around the country, and she has a lot of bank accounts in fiscal havens around the world. Uh,
Yeah.
one president, Carlos Menem, was selling weapons illegally to Croatia and Ecuador when they were in war during the 90s. And to cover it up, he blew up a small town where the weapons were, killing like 300 people. So, yeah, we're sort
Yeah.
of used to a level of dishonesty and uh, foul play from politicians that maybe makes it look okay. This was maybe an honest mistake. He said he was sorry
Yeah.
or something else.
Yeah, yeah, Milei hasn't killed nobody's gotten killed all over this, although you
Yeah.
certainly hear those stories about people committing suicide on the floor of the stock exchange when they lose everything. It's a well, maybe that's not a funny but certainly
No.
it's definitely yeah, it's definitely not looking good. I mean, yeah, so and I don't know how much money who were some of the big losers in this? Do we know who some of the big losers were? I mean, who put money in and lost it? I mean,
I
yeah,
I know that someone has already gone to courts in the United States because that we know that most people affected are not in Argentina; they are abroad. Probably most are in the United States. That's where the people with money are to lose in these sort of schemes. Um, and that could eventually mm, be a problem. On the interview that was leaked yesterday, um, it was published by one major news outlet, and it was edited. But after that, they published the uncut raw version, where an advisor gets close to Milei and said, "Mr. President, you shouldn't say that which you just said because that will compromise us in the Argentinian state in court. So uh, try to rephrase the question, etc." So there's some potential that we will have to face some consequences in foreign courts.
yeah. As you pointed out, I think that's what is it may people may end up being less likely to invest in Argentina. I mean, maybe Musk was going to build something down in Argentina. Now he's saying, no, maybe I won't do that. I do think that's something. Although it's also very possible that you could build up your own capital and build up your own infrastructure. Just take the tariffs off the food and start exporting all your food, and you'd maybe eventually feed all of South America. Uh, and I do, and
Yeah.
maybe you don't know how Americans are, but nobody nobody sues as much as Americans do. Americans sue for over everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you got people who have money,
Yeah. And actually, like for very good reasons, people don't trust, especially when there are big investors who come over here to invest lots of money. They don't trust the Argentinian justice system, so they will often invoke some form of clause so that they can take the case to the American courts. Most of the big cases about our foreign debt or like even corruption situations, expropriation or nationalization of some industries, end up being litigated abroad in New York specifically, because people trust American judges and they don't trust uh, Argentinian or South American judges very much.
What is the court system like there? Is it just whoever has the most money wins, or I mean, I don't know. Not being familiar, I can only imagine what it's like.
No, I mean,
It seems like it's that way here. Sometimes it does
like
seem that way here.
yeah, our system, yeah, our system is based on the one of the United States. Like you have the lower courts, then you have the Supreme Court. The judges are appointed in much the same way. The thing is that the appointments are usually much more political. I know the U.S. court and the judicial selection process has been much politicized over the last decades, but over here, it's usually like a sort of impunity pact between the judges and the politicians. So all of them are dirty with corruption cases, so they appoint judges who will not prosecute them for those corruption cases. And you have a lot of activist and militant judges who will paralyze investment projects because, like, I know, environmental reasons or uh, that sort of thing. And that actually makes for a situation where things take a lot of time to be litigated, because basically the only decent court you have here in Argentina is the Supreme Court, and things uh, take a lot of time to get from the lower courts to the Supreme Court. So there are maybe you are on the right and you will be eventually able to win the case uh, if you were expropriated or if you suffered some form of harm from the state, or if you were the victim of some particular form of crime. But until you actually get there, it will be years. So the Supreme Court is actually overworked. Like, I think the US Supreme Court gets around 30, 40 cases that they will hear in a year. Like, it's very, they just pronounce the last word. Over here, I think the Supreme Court hears like around 5,000 cases a year. There are Everything gets to the Supreme Court because no one trusts the lower court, so they appeal to the last echelon.
Well,
That's one of the problems.
I have no idea what those numbers are, so but it's definitely a it's definitely hard. It costs, from what I've heard, $1 million to get a case to the Supreme Court. You have to go through all these courts, and it isn't that easy to get in. A lot of times they
Yeah.
just and so whoever so the lower court just sticks with it, and they're the boss. It's very
Actually, we have,
yeah.
this is not necessarily relevant for our discussion, but just to illustrate the point, the lower courts are usually quite rebellious over here. For example, right now, we have a problem that the city of Buenos Aires used to be like Washington, D.C. It was a national federal district. Then it got like autonomy, like one of the provinces. But some of the functions of the federal government are still not completely um, handed over. For example, if you get sued in Buenos Aires, that case will still go to a federal court rather than a provincial court. The Supreme Court, the National Supreme Court, just got in this issue a few months ago and say, okay, that needs to change. So over time, the all of the cases that are located in the city of Buenos Aires can be appealed directly to the provincial courts, and the federal courts in the city just said no, we won't abide by that precedent. We just won't listen to the Supreme Court. That wouldn't happen in the United States. The idea that some lower court will just rebel against the dictates of the Supreme Court. So that just shows the level of legal uncertainty that you have to deal with here.
So there is really no rule of law. It's just rule of the courts.
Basic- Yeah,
I jokingly sometimes say in America that that's what we're going to end up is every big decision is just going to be lawsuits and court cases and nothing. It's never going to be. I mean, that's how we got legalized abortion in America. It wasn't. It was through court cases. It's just so. And I don't know. Do you have down there what you call activist judges?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, Especially there are a lot of judges that will freeze development projects on some of these like degrowther uh, ideology. Like there was a big project to establish an oil rig outside Mar del Plata, which is a big city. It would be a very big project, bring a lot of money, and for environmental reasons, a lower judge just froze the project without much justification for it. Um, and you see that all the time. Whether it's mining or opening some um, new factory or business. And one of the main problems Milei is facing right now actually are two major judicial battles. One over his, I wrote about this, his attempts to privatize football or to allow private businesses to own football teams. That was frozen by the courts, in my opinion, with not much legal basis. And the second is that we have a whole separate system of labor courts here in Argentina. Um, all of the labor judges are basically very, I don't want to say indoctrinated with um, this sort of pro labor bias.
Yes.
So they are blocking Milei's attempts to reform our labor laws to
Yeah.
make it like cheaper to hire people
Yeah.
or easier to fire people, etc.
There's a lot of activism there. Yeah, the labor laws, and you still have some unions. So so what else do you think could come? Anything else could come out of this? I don't think he's going to get impeached, although some people are saying that.
No, no. The opposition will try to start the process. I don't think it will succeed. They don't have the votes, and one of the things is that no other politician. Again, I want to insist that public opinion doesn't care.
Yeah,
Um, he's still popular, extremely popular, like 55% approval ratings, and no other politician has the moral legitimacy to say anything about what Milei did. All of them have done something worse, and they are on record doing those things.
yeah,
What should happen, I imagine, is that the people around him will start to be more cautious and tighter around who they let around the president, how they communicate things. This image that they were trying to build about being in control all the time of the flow of information is just not sustainable anymore. And some of Milei's parliamentary allies, who he was in the process of absorbing, will start to second guess and probably will have more power to negotiate some sort of equal footing in the coalition, particularly the pro party, the party of former President Mauricio Macri, the center right Republicans. Um, they will they are perceived as a little bit or more mature, even if more moderate, but more serious version of Milei. They have been supporting all of his economic reforms, and they were in the process of being uh, absorbed into La Libertad Avanza. That probably, I think, won't happen as fast. They will try to keep their different identity, and they will actually say, okay, the government has proven that they are not as professional as we thought they were. They still need us and what we can bring to the coalition. And they will have a little more credibility on the social side because Argentina is still a very progressive country in many socially progressive. I mean, for example, to go back to the Davos speech when he talked about
Yeah,
the LGBT, etc., uh, the people from this Republican Party started to differentiate themselves, saying, "Okay, no, we support the president's economic agenda, etc., but here in Buenos Aires, for example, where the mayor belongs to this party, is a city that is proud of its diversity and etc., etc."
yeah.
So
I, you know, gay people have been with us almost as long as prostitutes. They're not going away. It's
yeah,
and it's just something that's there and it exists. And we can certainly get into the debate of whether gayness is something you choose or it's something you're born with. But a lot of gay people have been really good to me, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus. Uh, it's and
yeah,
I what about, although I will say I hope that we can somehow figure out a way to live in a world that still promotes marriage and families and allows gay people to be themselves as well. I don't know
yeah,
how we do that, but it's uh, and it unfortunately has been the case that a lot of people in those groups have gravitated toward the socialists, and although I think they're just useful idiots for the socialists. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's the thing, Eloy, what have people like Miriam Bregman been saying about this? I'm sure they're jumping on this and just loving the fact that Milei promoted this coin.
Yeah, Miriam Bergman actually, she was the candidate on the Trotsky's party.
Yeah,
Uh, she got like 2% of the vote. She's not really popular, and I am sure she said something, but it's not like on the public mind. Uh, the people are trying to push the impeachment and are trying to take some credit for this. Are basically the Peronists, led by Christina Kirchner, the former president and vice president. Um, but again, she's she has entered this sort of cycle where even the people on her own party realize uh, that she's not fully in it. Uh, like she's probably just still leading the movement because there's no one to replace her, which I think it's always a failure on the part of a politician when they can't build a proper succession for themselves. So she's trying to negotiate a comfortable position for her proteges and her children in the future of the Peronist movement,
yeah.
but she herself probably won't be leading as actively. So, and she's really not being heard by anyone outside of that bubble, which is a big bubble. It's around
Yeah.
20-30% of the electorate who are never going to vote for Milei, who will always be devoted to the left and Peronism. But again, she's not making gains with the people who were not already convinced about her. So that's one of the big things in favor of the government right now. That the opposition has no clear leadership, and no one dares to take on Milei because one, he's too popular still, and two, uh, even I think the most economically literate leftists will sort of grudgingly recognize that what he's doing had to be done at some point. Like Milei is lowering inflation, he is making the economy grow, he is fixing our problem with unemployment, overregulation, etc. So maybe they will prefer to lay low, let Milei still fix what he has to fix, and then try to rebuild a strategy afterwards.
Well, the danger. I used Marion Bregman as an example because yeah, she wasn't that popular a candidate, but when you look at a Marion Bregman, you can see where the so-called democratic socialists will be in 20 years because they
Mhm.
always get crazier and the other and they do lay low for a while, but they never go away. I mean, they decided to lay low after the Berlin Wall collapsed, but they didn't go away. No, they just took a break and regrouped and figured, okay, we need to try different strategy here. They're very calculating. They're very strategic. I wish the right was as smart as they were, but strategically, but they're not. It's rather amazing how they operate. And the whole I've been told too that the La Libertad Avanza and other things are just going more conservative. Why is that? Or what's happening there?
Um, there are many things. First, I believe that the government and the team around Milei is, and maybe Milei himself, one is being pushed by the sort of international context. Trump is now the president of the United States, uh, so he's maybe trying to play up the connection over there. Um, like when Trump announced that the United States was leaving the World Health Organization, Milei announced the same for Argentina, even though that's not a politically salient issue over here. So maybe just a little bit of sucking up to the boss, so to speak, uh, which I think is unnecessary, but it's reasonable. I mean, that's one thing you could believe that needs to happen if you're in the government. The other is that maybe the government has just started to get too comfortable saying, okay, we are extremely popular, we are solving the economic issues, so we now can start to push our social agenda, uh, and it will ride on on the popularity of our economic agenda. So because again, Argentina is a very progressive country. We have laws in favor of homosexuality and transgender issues and all of this sort of stuff very early on, even before many other countries in the Americas or in Europe. Uh, but maybe Milei thinks he can start to push back on that uh, from his economic success. And then again, I just believe that as he has been purging some of the more libertarian elements from his closer circle, he's listening more to the more conservative elements. It was always a coalition, La Libertad Avanza, but maybe the conservatives have gotten a bit more uh, bold and more influential over the last few months. Um, which again, you push out Villarruel, who was their main representative. So
Yeah.
maybe that makes sense why you would want to compensate by listening to Agustin Laje. I don't know if he's popular over there or known. He's like
I know
our
who he is.
Ben Shapiro, a little more like Matt Wolf, more like Matt Wolf. It's a sort of right wing provocateur, but he has a more intellectual bent. Like he's not documentaries, he's more like books. Um, and he's actually building a foundation, a sort of think tank for the government. And he's the one promoting all of this agenda about gender ideology and etc. So maybe that's a combination of things. Sucking up to the United States, which has a conservative government right now, and trying to play up those international connections. Um, the conservatives have gotten more influential in the government, and maybe Milei just is or has become over the last few years. I think he didn't used to be more conservative on social issues himself, and he's just feeling more freely, more able to express that. And one of the other things, which maybe plays more into uh, internal politics, I think the government has played well with two demographics over the last election: the youth and the interior. And we all know that all over the world, the youth young people are becoming more right wing. I wouldn't say necessarily conservative, but more right wing, contested, like contrarian, not to say reactionary. Um, the gender polarization is also happening, so maybe that's a little bit of that. And the interior. Milei won in most of the provinces that are not Buenos Aires, so in rural areas rather than the urban metropolis around the capital. So maybe he's trying to appeal more to that electorate that is again more rural, traditional, religious, as opposed to Because again, we have midterms this year. He needs a majority in the Senate, and just like in the United States, the Senate is heavily skewed in favor of uh, small rural provinces rather than large urban provinces.
Yeah, it's popular in the interior and popular with the youth. I mean, do you think it might lose any youth support for this, or lose any volunteers? Because what he did there was just amazing. He had so many people working. It's a
I don't think so. I haven't seen any polls around this issue. Um, what I do think is that maybe we will see more polarization this time. Uh, because again, um, one of the reasons I don't think it's good for Milei to associate as much with the international right is that he has actually been more successful and popular internationally and domestically. Like everyone said, okay, Milei is a typical right-wing populist party, so he will be popular with young men and rural people and maybe the working class. But actually, we saw that he performed very well with basically all social classes, all ages, all both men and women. Um, maybe if he goes farther with this more right wing turn, we'll start to see more polarization. That he will increase his vote with young men and lose young women, which didn't happen last time. Uh, we got to see about that.
Eloy.
Yeah,
More than anything, I want people in Argentina to realize that if Trump was in Argentina, he would be a Peronist. I mean, right now there's talk about
yeah, definitely.
revoking a bunch of sending home a bunch of immigrants. A lot of them are Venezuelan. I know Venezuelan immigrants, and so America wants to send back the Venezuelan immigrants. And I know what the Venezuelan immigrants in Argentina are doing. They love Milei, and he loves them. It's I mean, and this is one reason why I've almost gotten obsessed here. Is if it's not Milei, who is it? Who's going to save the world? And maybe that's a big burden to put on somebody, but I don't. It's certainly not Trump. I don't think it's Victor Orban. I don't know enough about Giorgia Maloney, but some of his other friends. But he's hanging out with people who sound like him. And I mean, and of course, unfortunately, any if you're any president in the Western Hemisphere, you're going to have to suck up to America, no matter who you are. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. But uh, it's really, yeah. That's why I don't. I hope Milei can make Trump his useful idiot, and I don't want to see Milei being Trump's useful idiot. And Trump has been very good at making people his useful idiots.
Yeah, I think internationally, Milei, yeah, like he seems to genuinely get on very well with Trump, and there are many connections between the lower the staff, like the lower level people from Trump and Milei and Bolsonaro in Brazil.
Yeah,
And
it's it's a common enemy, but they're not nearly as philosophical
but and
as
I think Milei is again more popular because of the lack of polarization. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think he's more popular abroad as well because he gets on very well with people who are maybe more hostile to Trump, like I don't know Emmanuel Macron from France or Zelensky in Ukraine. Like he's obviously not a centrist or a leftist by any standard, but he's just heterodox enough that people from all sides of the political spectrum can see something about Milei reflected in them.
yeah. It's yeah.
Okay, so
So
you're sending me a tweet about Axel Kaiser. Did
uh,
he write Libra?
uh,
Or
I put it in the chat for a reason. I didn't want to say it on
okay,
here.
let me
So,
see.
but anyway, so we get to a point where
Oh, sorry.
but it is something too, where he wants to get foreign investments and he wants to grow the economy. I mean, maybe Musk will build a gigafactory down there or something like that. So there's a lot of things. I do want to ask this, since I haven't talked much. What more can you tell me about the split with Villarruel? I've not really covered that much, and it's really just it seems like it's happened very gradually. But when I did that one speech where he was sitting at the table, I noticed where's Villarruel?
Yeah, Villarreal actually, from the very start, there were some tensions because Villarreal is not just conservative. She's specifically aligned with those people who are very nostalgic about the last military dictatorship, which hopefully, thanks to God, Milei isn't. Um, he actually um admires many of the people who fought against the military dictatorship. But Villarreal comes from a military family. He has
Yes.
fought historically for the rights of military families to have some form of retribution, etc.
Yeah.
And she's not only conservative but nationalist. Like she's very much against all of this, let's say, globalism or openness that Millet is promoting commercially and diplomatically. Um, and I think she's genuinely believed what everybody believed about Milei at the start, that he was going to be a very unstable government without much support from the populace or from the institutions. And she started to conspire with other establishment politicians to basically replace Milei and establish some sort of national unity government. Obviously, that didn't happen. Milei turned out to be much more skillful at navigating the institutional channels and much more popular than everyone believed. Um, he pushed Villarreal away. In an interview, he announced this that I'm saying. Villarreal has aligned herself with the what she calls high politics, that is to say, the traditional establishment, and therefore she is no longer participating in cabinet meetings. I mean, she's still the vice president. Institutionally, you can't do anything about that, but you can't kick her out. But she's been isolated from influential positions. Also, another thing that happened is that she hoped that she will be given control of some specific ministries, defense, security, and intelligence, and all of those areas were given to Patricia Bullrich, who
Yeah.
was the center right candidate who ran against Milei, but then supported him for the second round.
And while Villarreal's father was in the military, Bullrich was in Montenero's, and she was actually fighting those
Yeah,
military dictators in the
yeah,
70s and
exactly.
80s. Hi, I'm Patricia Bullrich. I used to be a terrorist. Now I arrest them. That's a,
Mm.
wait, I,
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I can't resist picking on Bullrich. Argentine politics has certainly had has an interesting character there. But I do want to ask, I certainly believe that if you are in a war and you lose part of your leg or whatever, you are entitled to health care for life. I really believe
Yeah.
and I am curious. I suspect these countries in South America don't take care of their veterans very well after the wars, do they?
Yeah, we
Yes,
don't have many.
they don't do a very good job for the American soldiers, but I suspect in poorer countries it's even worse.
No, we don't have many, and it's been a very politicized issue. Like we have maybe some veterans because we sent like UN peacekeeping forces to like Haiti or Yugoslavia when that was a thing. I think we sent some soldiers to Iraq because back then the Americans were demanding all countries in the world pay tribute and send soldiers to Iraq. But the we really only have one, maybe two big batches of veterans. The Falklands War, the Malvinas War,
Yes.
against the United Kingdom, um, which became a very politicized issue because many of the at the time we still had the draft, so you had to distinguish between conscripts and voluntary soldiers. And many of the officers, the voluntary soldiers, actually were sympathizers with the last dictatorship. And when democracy came back, they started rebelling against the democratic government and trying to install um, a new military dictatorship, basically. So the government started this process of what is sometimes called, exaggeratedly, I think, demalvinistation, which is basically trying to uh, forget about the Falklands War, pretend it didn't happen, therefore not caring about the veterans. But that not only affected these upper echelons of officers, but also all the conscripts, the young men who went against their will basically to fight that war. And then, and yeah, it on top of that, how it's a very politicized issue. Um, it's sort of like veterans in the United States. Everyone will say that they support the veterans from the Falklands War and they want them taken care of, but no one has the political will to do anything about it. And on top of that, the general dysfunction of state institutions here in Argentina, like healthcare isn't very good in general for anyone. So, and then again, the second batch that is a little more controversial is the people who were involved in operations against the terrorists during the last military dictatorship. Um, which, of course, some of that was legitimate. Like there were terrorist groups and they were combat operations against them, but many of them and some people, both civilians and military, were hurt or dead or killed, I said, during those operations. But many of those same people who participated in repression against the terrorists also participated in the forced disappearance of people, torture, the concentration camps, all of the bad stuff that the last dictatorship did. So, do you really want to give healthcare to those people and acknowledge them as veterans of war? Because that wasn't really a war; it was a sort of state terror against some terrorists and mostly civilians. So that's why the issue gets very muddy.
Yeah, it certainly. I mean, yeah, you have the drafts and the conscripts, and not every and some people serve in the military, and they might have just been pushing papers for the whole time and never saw any real combat.
Hmm.
Uh, and possible too that maybe some people had conditions when they went in. It's a. If I had, yeah, it's a. So, what do you think is going to happen for the elections this year? Is anybody looking good? Is anybody else that's really doing a good job? I mean, I have to admit, I always like to watch those videos of Maria Amelia Orozco, but is there anybody else out there that's really doing good work?
No, I think the La Libertad Avanza will win. They basically can't lose. That's one of the advantages of being a party that didn't exist a couple years ago. They won a bunch of seats on Congress in the last election, and those seats won't come up for election for a couple of cycles. So in this cycle, they can only increase their numbers. It's a matter of whether they will increase by a lot or by a little. But I think it will be a lot. They have especially in the Senate, they are very popular in the particular provinces when you have senatorial elections. And after that, I think the allies will have some basis to try to resist absorption into La Libertad Avanza. Uh, because of all of these scandals. And the opposition is as lost as ever. So if they win, it will probably be because the government is not being particularly careful about winning in some specific province. In my province, particularly, the governor is from the Peronist party, and he's probably one of the main candidates to be running against Milei in 2 years. But again, he's trying to lay low because anything could happen in 2 years. That's one of the things about midterms. Um, you don't want to like waste all of your popularity points in a race that ultimately, even if you win, won't give you the presidency.
And you don't want to waste your energy attacking somebody who's popular. You wait until they have a vulnerable spot. Uh, I couldn't help but notice Seyfedina Moose has been really running with this too. Did you see his tweet about Milei a while back about Milei not fixing the economy? You know who I mean? Seyfedin is the author of the Bitcoin Standard.
No, no, I didn't.
Yeah, this is the sad part. I think Seyfedin's a good guy. So you know, it's never when you see friendly fire among the good guys, it just hurts everybody. It makes it easier for the bad guys. But we'll learn about this. You know, I well, this has been a good talk, Eloy. Do you have anything? I don't think there's anything else we haven't covered yet. It's been a good show. It's great to get you back on here. I hope I can get this out pretty soon because first time I've
Mhm.
covered this, and I may want to ask other people about it.
Yeah,
Do you have
sure.
anything else to say before we go?
No, I think that's it. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, it's been great having you back on. Yeah, yeah, I will probably be back in Argentina in November. Just can't wait to go back, but it's so exciting to
Oh,
see what's happening there. You know, and Sturzenegger's been doing a good job too. You know, he's now become my guy. I tell people, you might not be able to get Milei at your conference, but try to get this guy. You know, it's
yeah, yeah. I think Sturzenegger is maybe one of the best people in the government right now because I have a particular preference for people who lay low. Like he does
yeah,
stuff, he's very efficient at his job,
yeah,
and he doesn't get into scandals. But also, he it's not like he is unknown. He goes in the media, he does appearances, interviews. He just is not very controversial.
yeah.
I like that profile.
Yeah, it's like in sports, you know, there's quiet guys who just do their job, but you know, then suddenly you realize there's 2 or 3 days they're injured, and you realize, oh crap, we really needed him here. Yeah, but yeah, okay. Well, where can we find you out there?
At Eloy Vera like
Yes,
my name over here,
yep,
on Twitter or Instagram.
yeah, on Twitter, Instagram. Okay, well, thank you, Aloy. Please like my novel.
Thank you.
Please go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out my Substack. People are giving me money at Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you, Aloy. I'm Chris Baker. We're out. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.